Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a winter storm which is going to be moving throughout parts of the northern plains and back through into parts of the upper Great Lakes. We're also going to be going over a multi-day severe weather event that's going to be spanning over 6 days where we have slight risks of severe weather going out all the way into next week. We're going to be covering that. That's going to be happening especially over the central part of the country and even into parts of the southern United States. So we're going to be quickly covering that, and in tomorrow's video we're going to have even more extensive coverage on that severe weather outbreak. So here's what the current National Weather Service page looks like. We have some winter storm warnings in effect for some of the higher elevations in California, as well as even some of those higher elevations in Southern California. We have some winter weather advisories in Northern California, as well as some more winter weather advisories back through Montana, Idaho, and another stripe from parts of South Dakota and Minnesota westward, back through Wyoming, Nebraska, and a little bit of Colorado as well. We have some winter storm watches in effect for northeastern Minnesota and northwestern Wisconsin, right around western Lake Superior. We also have some wind advisories in effect for parts of the Southwest, as well as for areas of Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas as well. And then we have some red flag warnings in effect for areas around Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Kansas, and Colorado, as well as another area for parts of Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. And then other than that, we don't have many more watches or warnings currently in place. Yesterday, we had a high temperature which was tied over two areas in the continental United States. 4 miles southeast of Fountain Hills, Arizona, they got to 87 degrees. So did Phoenix, Arizona. They got to 87 degrees as well. Both those areas are just within miles of each other. The low temperature for the continental United States was in Saranac Lake, New York, where they got to negative 18 degrees. That's in northern upstate New York, in the Adirondacks, and some of the higher elevations of upstate New York. The average precipitation or rainfall report was in Olympic National Forest. They got to 0.78 inches of rainfall. It was definitely a very, very dry and inactive day yesterday, but it's really speeding up today. The highest snowfall reports were both tied at 2 inches, 13 miles northwest of Craig, Montana, and then 6 miles northeast of Craig, Montana. Both of those areas in western Montana, they got to 2 inches of snowfall yesterday, and overnight we had some reports even over 8 inches from this winter storm that's moving throughout those areas, and that we're going to be covering in more detail in today's video. Now, before we get into it, let's just look at the hazards map, because this is going to show you generally where you have some of the bigger storms and weather issues over the next week or so. So anywhere in that brown shaded area, that's where you have severe drought. Covers much of the western part of the country. As you go pretty much anywhere from the Great Plains westward is where you have a fairly decent drought in place. We're going to be seeing heavy rain, according to the Weather Prediction Center, from the 11th through the 14th within this entire area in the green right here. That covers much of the central part of the country. And then the severe weather, which we're going to be talking about as well, from the 12th through the 14th, is really going to be centered over the south central part of the country. And then we even have some sort of snow event, heavy snow event. Some of the models are showing upwards of 20 or 30 inches. We're going to really have to monitor that system because it could be very, very major. But for parts of Colorado and New Mexico, some heavy snow possible from the 12th through the 13th. So you can see it's very, very active, and that's just to give you a brief idea of what you should be expecting over the next 3 to 7 days from the 11th through the 15th. Let's start talking about this winter storm that's going to be moving throughout parts of the northern plains. This is the NAM 12CAM model. It's been very, very accurate in recent winter storms that we've had, so I'm going to be using this as the main model for today's video. It is within range, and it has been in quite good agreement with the rest of the models as well. We see some general spotty, maybe even a spotty rain shower, maybe even a few thunderstorms mixed in there through parts of Iowa. We have a general risk of thunderstorms through there today. We also see a little bit of snow on the left-hand side of your screen, and that's going to continue to creep in further and further to the east as we get through the morning hours on Wednesday. That low pressure is now in southern Nebraska by this point. It's still right around 6 a.m. Wednesday morning. We're dealing with snow back through western Nebraska, southwestern South Dakota there, and into portions of eastern Wyoming. That system's going to continue to head further to the east. We're going to see that by Wednesday, right around noontime, we're dealing with more of that snow back through Nebraska, South Dakota, and Wyoming, with rain into parts of Minnesota, a little bit of South Dakota and Nebraska as well. And then you're going to see that low pressure is going to head further north and east. And because of how this is oriented, we're going to see again your low pressure right here, and we're going to see that rain snow line somewhere right around here. So you actually go west of this line, that's where you're dealing with snow, but you can be all the way up into parts of Lake Superior in the northern Great Lakes, and you're going to be dealing with rain. So definitely a very, very interesting setup. It's going to pretty much cut straight through parts of the Midwest and then continue up through into parts of Canada as well. We're dealing with light to moderate snowfall by this point, and then it really starts to get much heavier as we go through the early evening part of Wednesday. We're dealing with by 6 p.m. Central Time on Wednesday, we have moderate to heavy snowfall back through a little bit of Wisconsin, back through northern and central Minnesota, and into much of South Dakota and a little bit of Nebraska, a little bit of North Dakota there. We're dealing with that snow, and then as we go through Wednesday into Thursday morning, that low pressure continues to head further to the north and to the east. Maybe some icing issues, especially with those winds coming on from the land and then going onshore to Lake Superior. That could cause some issues with icing, and that's typically how you can get some sleet or ice events over parts of the Great Lakes. So we do have to watch out for that, especially on the southern shores of Lake Superior. It should be cold enough, though, as you get into Minnesota and South Dakota, to stay mostly snowfall, mostly snow, and then back through Thursday morning, we're dealing with more snowfall tapering off as we get later in the day on Thursday. So here's my snowfall forecast for this event. Mountain snow anywhere within the Rockies, we're dealing with generally 4 to 8 inches of snowfall. Some areas could even see over 12 inches of snowfall in some of those higher elevations. This is from today through Thursday. Here would be that under an inch area, so basically a coating, a dusting of snowfall, nothing too major if you're just within this light blue area. If you're within this medium shade of blue, this is where we're looking at 1 to 3 inches of snowfall. You can see some of those areas back through Nevada, Utah, and a little bit of Colorado, as well as another area covering much of Wyoming, back through parts of Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, and also into Minnesota, Wisconsin, and a little bit of the UP of Michigan as well. We have 3 to 6 inches of snowfall for many of these areas, still back through into parts of Nevada, Colorado, a little bit of Utah as well, and then 3 to 6 inches also covering much of Wyoming, a little bit of Nebraska, the southwestern part of South Dakota, the central part of South Dakota, and the northeastern part of South Dakota, and then back through northern Minnesota. And then here's that 6+ inch area anywhere within the pinks for a little bit of southern South Dakota into parts of central Wyoming, as well as more areas back through into parts of northern Minnesota. That's where we're looking at 6+ inches of snowfall potentially out of this snowfall event. Here's the winter storm impacts, and this is how severe the winter storm looks to be according to what I believe this is what the Weather Prediction Center does put out. They have a minor risk anywhere in the yellow shade, and that covers much of Wyoming, South Dakota, back through into Minnesota there. So this is where we're dealing with decent impacts, but it will still be manageable. And then once you're in those orange areas, this is where it looks like you could have a tougher time on the roads. If you go back through parts of eastern Wyoming into southern South Dakota, a little bit of eastern South Dakota as well. So we do have quite a good chance of seeing some good, decent snowfall, and that could cause some issues on the roadways. If you're just in that kind of grayish or bluish shade there, that's where you have limited impacts, nothing too major, and you should still, with decent ability, be able to drive out on the roadways, go to work, and all of that. So not too many issues if you're just in that light blue or gray area. Here's what the Storm Prediction Center is showing for that severe weather outbreak and potential. Here would be for today. We have a general risk right around Iowa, Nebraska, and some of the areas surrounding there. And then if we go to your day 2 outlook, which is for tomorrow, and if we show you the individual risks, you can see that for tomorrow we have a general risk or a marginal risk for that dark green area, and that covers much of western Missouri, eastern Kansas, and northern Oklahoma. They even added a slight risk this morning into that area for eastern Kansas and a little bit of Oklahoma as well. we see that we have up to a 15% chance or greater of seeing some hail over some of these areas in Kansas and Oklahoma. And then we even have a 5% chance of seeing wind damage over some of these areas in the green shaded area. That's for parts of Missouri, Kansas, and Oklahoma as well. Here's your day 3 outlook, and this is for Thursday. We have a marginal risk in place for parts of western Texas, especially northwestern Texas, back through central and eastern Oklahoma, and then back into parts of northern Arkansas and southern Missouri. That's where we have a marginal risk of severe weather. Nothing too severe just yet, but then as you get into the day 4 outlook, they rarely put out anything from the day 4 through 8 time frame, and that's only when they think that there's a fairly good probability or chance that that's going to happen, and also when they think that it's going to be a fairly big event. If you remember the last time they did this over a continued span of multiple days, I believe they might have done this once or twice since then, but it was actually the Easter outbreak last April, I believe, in parts of the southern United States, and unfortunately there was a tornado outbreak, and they had, I believe, a 30% chance over some of those areas 5 or 6 days out. So when they put something out here, not saying that we're going to see a tornado outbreak, and I really don't think we're going to see anything of that magnitude, but when they put something out on the day 4 through 8 outlook, you really want to pay attention, because it means a lot more than if they put something on the day 1 outlook. The further out they're putting it out, the more likely and also the more intense that severe weather may be. They have a 15% chance, which is equivalent to a slight risk on this map, for parts of central and eastern Oklahoma, and then back through northern Texas as well. If you look at the day 5 outlook, not really too much of a difference. It gets actually a little bit wider, so now encompassing parts of Dallas, Fort Worth, and then also back through parts of Oklahoma City, Tulsa, now getting into it, and we're dealing with much of the state of Oklahoma and northern Texas, as well as even a little bit of southern parts of Kansas. They're getting in on that 15% chance or slight risk of severe weather. If you look at the day 6 outlook, which is for, I believe this is for Sunday of this week, and we're dealing with a 15% chance or a slight risk, covering a much wider area that's shifted a little bit further east. So you go into eastern Oklahoma, northeastern Texas, back through northern Louisiana, pretty much the entire state of Arkansas, a little bit of southern Missouri, and a little bit of western Mississippi, and that's what we're dealing with, a 15% chance or a slight risk of severe weather on Sunday. So the further out they put it, that means that that's more likely to happen, and it's also more likely to be one of those more severe or intense types of outbreaks. Now, if we look at also that chance of excessive rainfall or flash flooding, we're dealing with a 5 to 10% chance or a marginal risk if you go back through these areas. This was for tomorrow. We're dealing with through parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, back through Illinois and Iowa. We have a 5 to 10% chance, and then also a 5 to 10% chance or a marginal risk on Thursday, where over northern Kentucky, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, a little bit of Missouri and Ohio as well, under that risk of flash flooding. Nothing of significant risk, but with the already some of that flooding across the Ohio River, and then also into a little bit of the Mississippi River as well. This area is already very prone to flooding, and they already have some flooding still in those areas. So if you add a little bit more rainfall, it's no wonder that you could see a little bit more in terms of flash flooding. So we do want to watch out for that. And if you're wondering how much rainfall in total we're going to be seeing over the next 7 days, here's what the Weather Prediction Center is forecasting, and you can really tell where the bullseye is. It's over parts of the central part of the country, over the central Mississippi River Valley, back into parts of the southern and central plains. You can see that anywhere in the reds, we have a 2 to 4 inch area according to the Weather Prediction Center, and then a 4+ inch area in that golden color, which you can see right over there. So in a little bit of Missouri, Oklahoma, and Kansas. So we definitely have a high amount of precipitation or rainfall being indicated over the next 7 days on either side of the country. However, we really don't see too much. It's really in that central part of the country where we're dealing with quite a bit of rainfall and just general storminess over the next couple of days. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.